Once you found information, it is important to decide if this is something you could use for your assignment, if it's a good or academic resource, or if it is something you couldn't use, a bad resource. This video should help you to choose the right sources of information. Here are some questions you can ask yourself to make an informed decision on your resources. The first one is, what is it? A good way to start an evaluation is to ask yourself, what is the resource I'm looking at? Is it a book? Is it a website? Is it a company report? Is it a blog? Is it a journal article? Or is it a magazine article? Then ask yourself how reliable and how authoritative the resource is. Did anybody review what the author wrote? Is there an editor? How rigorous is the editorial process? You might have heard about the peer review process in academic journals. Once an author submits a paper to an academic journal, the editor sends it out to the reviewers. They are experts in their field and review the article. They send it back to the editor, and then the editor decides if the article will be published or if the author has to revise and resubmit it, or if the article won't be published at all. This is an example of a very rigorous editorial process which improves the quality of an article. If an article is published in a magazine, there is also an editor who decides which article to publish, but the editorial process is not that rigorous. For example, there are no reviewers. On the other hand, if you have a blog entry, there is basically no editorial process behind it. Therefore, it is important to understand what kind of resource you are looking at and how reliable it is. The second question you can ask yourself is, who wrote it? This is about who created the content. Is it an individual? Is it an expert? Is it a company? Is it a governmental institution? Answering these questions can help you to decide the quality of a website. Here is an example. Who do you think is responsible for this website? Is it a reliable one or is it not reliable? Yes, I think it is reliable because of the institution that is behind it. It's the Chartered Management Institute. Or another example, who is behind this website? Is it reliable? Obviously, this is a blog. It might be a good read, but it's a personal opinion, no editorial process, and therefore not really a reliable resource for academic writing. It will also be interesting to find out the level of expertise an author has. If you have an academic journal article, the author usually is an expert in his or her field. If you have a magazine or newspaper article, the writers are usually journalists, not experts. If you have a blog or a Wikipedia article, the writer might be a layman. Another interesting quality criteria of resources are references. Do the authors reference their sources of information? Is there a reference list? This is another reason why academic journal articles are usually the most reliable resources, because they have to include an extensive reference list. In addition, academic articles usually don't have illustrative photos or pictures, just graphs and charts and tables. So, whenever you have to decide if you use a resource for your assignment, find out how reliable and authoritative a source is, and ask yourself at least these two questions. What is it? And who wrote it?
Created using Powtoon.